Hello again, everybody. This is Craig Evans of Autism Hangout, and thank you for tuning into this Autism Hangout special report. With me today is Jane Johnson, the Managing Director of the Autism Research Institute. Now, Jane has co-authored several books, including Changing the Course of Autism, a Scientific Approach for Parents and Physicians with Dr. Brian Jepson, and Families of Adults with Autism, Stories and Advice for the Next Generation with Annie Van Rensselaer. Her current book, also with Annie, is called Siblings, the Autistic Spectrum Through Our Eyes. And it's a fabulous read. Jessica Kingsley is the publisher. But with me today is Jane. Welcome, Jane. It's nice to have you on board.
Thanks, Craig.
Now, I did finish your book. It was a relatively quick read, but it was an absolutely fascinating read to have all these kids talking about their siblings with autism. There was good, there was bad, there was recommendations and advice, and there were things to avoid. But I've got to start at the beginning here. What was your inspiration for writing this book?
A dear friend of mine, who in fact is one of the contributors for the book, is named Melissa Olive, and she works for the Center for Autism-Related Disorders. And she had read the Families of Adults book, and she came up and said, "Jane, I love that book. Now you need to do one for siblings." And I thought about that, and I really liked the idea, because I think that the siblings can get lost in the shuffle. We parents are so focused on our spectrum children, and their needs are so obvious and so pressing that the more subtle needs of the siblings can evaporate. But they're very real, and I think it's much, much harder to be a sibling than most people realize. You know, neurotypical kids in a family that's totally unaffected spend all of their time looking for perceived unfairnesses. You know, it's not fair is the thing you'll hear most often. And in this case, it really isn't fair. Whether you have a high-functioning child or a low-functioning child, it's not going to be fair for the siblings. That child is going to demand extra resources, and you will have to do your best to meet those needs. And so when your neurotypical children are saying, "But you don't do my homework with me," it's true. You know, there's just no way around it. It is hideously unfair.
Yeah, one of the universal themes I saw from all the kids was lost in the shuffle, lost in the shuffle. I'm of the era where Tommy would look at Dick's mothers and say, "Mom always liked you best." But the curious thing about this is these kids seem to transcend that. What did you find most interesting when you read through kids' responses to what it's like to being a sibling of someone with autism?
Well, that is what surprised me most, was their ability to transcend. I have to tell you, we sent out an invitation for siblings to submit chapters, and we used every single submission we got. So there was no editing in that way. So this is truly just a random collection of kids who felt inclined to share their experiences. And, you know, I think any challenge in life, if we choose to, we can learn from it and make something good come of it. We can just get lost in bitterness and disappear into a closet somewhere, but we can choose to find the good. And I think that these kids really did. And that it was important to me to share that. And I'm hoping, I really wanted to put together this book for siblings. You know, not every sibling is able to access a sibling support group, but I also want parents to read it, and I'm hoping therapists and teachers will read it as well, particularly the parents, because they do need to, and I think most do their level best. I think most parents can see that the siblings get neglected, but I think some can't see it, because I've known children whose sibling was on the spectrum, and their parents were so wrought all the time, and the parents just needed that neurotypical child to be on perfect behavior at all times. And, you know, it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on a kid, you know, to not be allowed to be a typical 8-year-old, but to have to be behaving like a 25-year-old, because otherwise mommy's going to fall or daddy's going to fall apart. So I'm hoping that parents will read it too. There is
that pressure, and you could see that in the response. But I found some incredible good news throughout the reading of this entire book. And we've already touched on it a little bit. Yes, they're required to grow up quicker, but it seems that these kids have developed this extraordinary sense of compassion. And pretty much it starts with their sibling, but then it's how they view the world. In fact, I wanted to read one person in particular here. This is from a 19-year-old. Her name is Alyssa Shimura. And she wrote about, what was it, 9 or 10 things here. It was 9. But a couple of these were very interesting. The first one is, you know, life wouldn't be half as interesting or full of laughter if your sibling were normal. You love that. You just got to love that. If you play off your sibling's atypical behavior as if it's no big deal when he or she acts up in public, other people will follow your lead. Acting embarrassed or getting angry will only draw attention to the situation. That's a pretty profound insight for somebody. Now, granted, she's 19, but she probably learned this really early on.
Yeah.
And there's 2 more here. It will surprise you how typical your relationship will be with your sibling. Sibling squabbles transcend autism. So they're still developing this normal relationship. And then the last one here, this is my favorite. It's important to have inside jokes with your sibling. It will make both of you feel special to have something that's just between the 2 of you. Plus, humor also transcends autism. Humor also transcends autism. Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
Jane, this book is by Jessica Kingsley. How do people go about finding more information about you or how to get your book?
The book is available on Amazon for, I think, $10 and change. And I think it's coming out April 19th. Okay. I ordered a copy and I haven't gotten mine yet, but it'll be soon.
Well, I'm sure you'll be one of the first ones.
So Amazon is probably the best bet. I haven't looked into, I know I should have this information, but I haven't looked into availability in places like Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
Sort of these days, my default setting is to always go to Amazon.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. How do people get in touch with you or find out more about you? Do you have a web address?
I don't, but I take emails from strangers all the time, jane@autism.com.
Autism.com. Very good. Jane, thank you for all that you do for our special kids. Thank you for your books. You've written some wonderful information. And do you have anything else on the horizon that you're looking at this point in time?
No, you know, I always worry what will I do next, and then something always falls in my lap. So I'm just waiting for it to arrive.
Okay, fate. That's the way it's supposed to be then. Jane, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, Craig.
And thank you, Autism Hangout. I'll be back again soon with another special report.